Hello and welcome to Go Beyond Sports. Once again, with me, Sonali Gupta. I'm extremely excited about today's interview with six-time Olympian and Indian luge champion Shiva Keshavan OLY, Asia's fastest man on ice. A very brief, and I'm very sure not an intro that contains who he really is. Shiva Keshavan is an Arjuna awardee and India's fastest man on ice. He's represented India at six Winter Olympic Games from 1998 to 2018. He's currently working as the High Performance Director of the Luge Federation of India. He holds the world record for being the youngest luge champion and Olympian, first from India to qualify for the Winter Olympic in his sport. It is not only a pleasure, but it is an honor to have with us Shiva Keshavan today. From your growing years to today, what's that one aspect of sport that you think has been something that has allowed you to be where you are today?
Well, I think, just the fact that it has given me the courage and the strength to deal with adversity. I think that is a very important, the whole character building part of it. And I think, many people tell me that you've chosen a difficult path. The sport is relatively unknown. You have to face a lot of difficulties. It's true. But at the same time, you have difficulties no matter what you do in life. And
Right.
at anything you do, you reach a moment in which, you might question yourself or you might find it hard to go on. And sport gives you that kind of discipline that, look, no, this is my goal and I have to reach there. And not just that, since it is something that I inherently love doing, so you know why you're doing something. You're doing something because you love it. You don't
Right.
have to go any further than that for an explanation. So, and I think this has then taught me also in other parts of life as well that,
Luge is actually still, like you said, not very popular. And just for a layperson, when we say you are the fastest man on ice in Asia, and of course it's a sledge that you use, and your clothes are very important, and there's a whole lot of science that kind of comes behind a sport like this. Um, what would you say to someone who wants to know more about it? Like, what's the fear factor in sort of going on the sledge and being so fast, and what's the mental preparation? How is it scary? Because, like, most Indian parents, and if we talk about India, that they are always a little more wary of taking on something that is that's kind of extremely adventurous. And what you do is sort of extremely adventurous in that sense of it. It's definitely winter sports, or any kind of these sports are also sort of, they're not cushioned sports per se. So what would you say to somebody who's coming from that point of view, that it is so scary? Aren't you scared? And it's so fast, and to all of those mental chatters.
well, yeah, it's a whole process, let's say, to get to know sport, especially a sport like luge. I mean, the people who don't know about it, and the simplest, let's say, explanation I can give is, if everybody knows Santa Claus and knows what Santa Claus does, he basically rides on a sled. So that is the basic concept of a sled that I think everybody can understand. And for kids, basically, sleigh riding is the most fun activity that you can do. So when you start a sport, you don't have to look at it as a danger. You have to look at it as something that is fun. Of course, when you start, you don't have to you don't have to take it to the extreme when you're starting. It just has to be, an activity. So for parents who are pushing their kids for any sport, the first thing is to instill the joy of playing. Right, that is the fundamental. That is of fundamental importance when you're starting a sport. Um, from then on, I mean, when we're talking about adventure sports, when we're talking about high performance, and in my case, we're talking about speed as well. So, in artificial track luge, we reach quite high speeds. I mean, my personal record is 149.9 kilometers an hour, which is, faster than many cars go in India, probably faster than the speed limits, right? So, and we're doing this on a sled that is about, let's say, 10 centimeters above the snow. And there are certain really incredible things about it. For example, we don't have any brakes, so there's no possibility to slow yourself down. Once you start, you have to finish, and at the end, the track kind of goes uphill, so it allows you to slow down and get off. And and also, obviously, there's the whole technical part, because the track is curvy, and when there are curves, there's a centrifugal force, or the G force, as we call it, that we experience, that is really high.
And how significant is, say, your costume that, plays a part in the sport, which has this aerodynamic drag and technical, and like you talk about the G-force. And so, something like an F1 racing, that too, it just looks like it is fast, but then there's so much technicality that goes behind that sport. Mm-hmm. So is this again something then, do we really have to study it, learn it? Is it like a lot of physics? Is it a lot of math? So, is it daunting for somebody who's coming in and saying, oh my God, this, like, I have to study all this?
Well, sports nowadays, they've become so scientific and so technical because it's so competitive that everyone is looking for that little, differentiating factor that can make you better than the others. So sometimes it's ability, but it can even be equipment. You mentioned the suit, for example. We have these skin-tight suits that are very aerodynamic. They have some micro fibers which allow the air to flow in a certain way. And of course, they don't allow air to penetrate and create more drag. And just simple things like, keeping your foot flat against the air surface, or pointing it and cutting the air, that itself makes, tenths of a second of difference down the track. So we start to bring a lot of technological, scientific, mechanical aspects into the mix. And so the more advanced you are in sports, you realize that countries are doing more and more R&D to find equipment.
Does it make luge a slightly more expensive sport in terms of the equipment, the clothing, or say, even if you're looking at a team behind you, because it's so much more technical, does then that kind of become one of those, binding factors for it in terms of its popularity? What's the kind of then infrastructure that we have? And what's the kind of support system now that the government, and not talking about when it started to over the years, because you definitely are somebody who symbolizes the sport in India for all of us. So today, as we stand where we are, what's the kind of training or infrastructure that's kind of present for us here? And then is there a certain age that a person has to come in to start, or there is a certain skill set that is required for someone to start even wanting to pursue the sport? Is it not, in fact, the other way around, as where the common thought is that as an athlete, as a sports player, you have to be very wary of what you eat, and especially when you are, especially when you are competing in weight categories, definitely for those sports, you have to sort of maintain it and all. So, is it not like an anti to what we hear commonly?
Well, it depends from sport to sport. Okay, in luge, actually, it's a gravity sport. So the heavier you are, the faster you go.
Oh wow!
It's it's as simple as that. Whereas some sports you have to be lighter. But irrespective of that, when you're doing a lot of training, you're burning a lot of energy, and you need to get that energy from somewhere.
Right.
So normally athletes would eat a lot more than regular people because the body demands that.
What was your experience participating in Olympics the first time, and then again, and then again, and then again, and being a 6-time Olympian? What's the learning that you have come back with for yourself and for your sport, and probably even a learning for sports per se, with your experience over there? What do you think would, be something that you would like to bring in from your own experiences and from you being as the person who has achieved what you have? And then, is there a procedure for talent identification in respect to luge in India already, or is there something that requires to be changed, or then is there any kind of a infrastructural, like we of course did mention about that, but then what more is required apart from, let's say, like you said, awareness? We talk about education, accessibility, availability. What do you think is sort of important here? Some little fun questions, and of course the first one being, it's luge, it's not lug. Is it true? Is it false?
It's true. Yes.
I had to start with that because so even when I was doing that little write up and all of this, see, ye lug kya hai? So I said, okay, I am going to have to start with lug because that's how we say it, right? And then that's how we read it. And so yes, it's luge and not lug. You had not heard of luge as a sport before you first tried it yourself.
That is true. I did not know what it was so we have to try to learn.
At the age of 16, you had participated in the Nagano Winter Olympics.